Howdy, folks, and welcome to the podcast. This is Untold Tales from this side of nowhere, and I am your host, Connor Jones, bringing you the latest news from northwestern Wyoming, or at least a little bit of commentary about the weather, and a humorous story about growing up here in northwestern Wyoming. But first, our episode today is sponsored by the Copper Corner Cafe. The Copper Corner Cafe in Basin, Wyoming is open Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Stop by and try any of their delicious menu items featuring homemade bread for all sandwiches and, of course, their famous pie for dessert. Breakfast is served for lunch as well. Breakfast is served all day, so come on in to the Copper Corner Cafe. Breakfast is served all day, so come on in to the Copper Corner Cafe. We're also sponsored by the Wyoming Welcome Program. The folks at the Wyoming Welcome Program distribute brochures and baskets. The brochures carry jokes, facts about Wyoming and the month's holidays, along with advertisements from local businesses, and the baskets carry promotional items from local businesses, which are distributed to new move-ins to Park County. If you're interested in getting your business name out there in a way that is both affordable and effective, shoot them an email at HaleyJ, that's HALEYJ, at WyomingWelcome.com. And now, the podcast. It's not even February in northwestern Wyoming yet, and we've had a little warm snap here that's giving me spring fever, which is terrible at the end of January. We haven't even gotten to Groundhog's Day. But it was warm enough. I took the boys out fishing yesterday afternoon, and we caught a little bit of daylight before the end of the day. No fish, but I did manage to cast a little worm fly pattern and a little midge, and we just went here outside of town to a little creek that runs near the town of Ralston. In the past, I've had pretty good luck there, but Reuben and Joseph were real troopers. They did a great job of hiking down into the creek, and we did at one point get to this barbed wire fence we had to cross, and right before the fence, there was a rebar post that had been driven in the ground. And I stopped right there because it was starting to get dark, and I was carrying Joseph. I told Reuben, don't step on this rebar. Watch out, it will hurt you. And he says, okay, Dad. So I turned around to put Joseph over the fence, and from behind me, I heard, a cry of pain, and Reuben had scraped himself on the piece of rebar I had told him moments before to avoid. And I was reminded of my younger self, But luckily, he's okay. He had a little scrape and a couple tears, but hey, the outdoors make you tough, I guess. So I was just happy that they came fishing with me, and we're going to have to go back when there's a little more time and catch some fish. It's not fun to be skunked and then to get hurt. Just adding injury to insult, I guess. So, anyways, today's story does include children. It's called You Could Have Told Me. Here goes. 4! I hollered, whipping my right arm across my body and letting the frisbee fly. Why are you yelling 4? My wife Lily asked. There isn't anybody between us and the basket. Well, with my skills, you can never be too careful, I said, my eyes following the progress of my disc. Or lack of skills, Lily muttered. Come on, I breathed, With characteristic accuracy, I had thrown the disc in a direct path toward the basket, and it glided as smoothly as a Canada goose, coming in for a landing on the crystal surface of a country pond. Kathunk! Well, who planted that tree there? I thundered, watching the disc bounce off a large fir tree and fall to the ground, nowhere near my intended target. Nice skills, Lily grinned. Great. Now I'll have to add a throw just to get around that tree, I groaned. At least you can throw your frisbee that far, Lily consoled me. My longest throw is like 30 yards. You're doing great, dear, I reassured her, brushing aside a loose strand of her blonde hair and giving her a peck on the cheek. You would think with all the frisbee golf we've played, we would be getting better, Lily said, scooping up Al Jr. and pulling a stick out of his mouth. Ever since he had started teething, he had begun chewing on anything he could clamp in a fat little fist and insert into his pint-sized jaws. In his mother's arms, he immediately began jabbering away happily in a language known only to himself. I smiled and took a deep breath of the summer air. We were at Freeman Park in Idaho Falls, participating in one of my favorite outdoor activities that didn't involve shooting a rifle or casting a line. Disc golf was a great way to get out and get some fresh air without having to go too far from home or breaking the bank. These two facts alone made it a great option for a family with a baby and a tight budget. I pushed the stroller along while Lily carried little Al, trying to avoid the pine cones that littered the ground around the fir tree I had pegged a few minutes earlier. The truth was, frisbee golf wasn't the main draw of Freeman Park for me. On the western edge of the park ran the mighty Snake River, and as we neared the little jogging trail that snaked its way along the riverbank, I couldn't keep my gaze from drifting out towards the water and the telltale eddy of what appeared to be an excellent fishing hole near a large rock. Al, Lily's voice suddenly broke through my fishing fantasies like a baseball through a bedroom window. Huh? I jerked back to reality and turned to see Lily holding out Al Jr. Here, I need to throw. Oh, yeah, I grunted. Sorry. Lily shook her head as I accepted Al Jr., whose face was covered in dirt. No doubt he had consumed some, and if I had to guess, I would say we would soon be changing a sandy diaper. I watched as my wife scooped up her frisbee and drew her arm back across her chest. She crow-hopped toward her target. With a sharp exhale, she launched the frisbee from her hand, and all three of us watched as it sailed over the neatly mowed grass in the direction of the frisbee golf basket. Not bad, I grinned. Al babbled appreciatively. So you are watching, Lily said, turning to look at me. Of course, I reassured her. As she gripped the stroller handle and turned to begin pushing it toward my own disc, I stole a backwards glance at the water. I could have sworn I saw a fish rise, and it was all I could do not to go back to get a better look. That being said, I knew how annoyed Lily could get with what she referred to as my fishing problem, so I hurried after her, little Al bouncing in my arms. I passed the baby off to Lily and retrieved my orange disc from its spot next to the large fir tree and gave it a hard toss up and at an angle so it would curve back down as it skirted around the edge of the tree. The frisbee sailed upward, then began to fall back to earth, following a curved path. At this point in my frisbee golf career, I was getting too good at going around trees like this. Maybe with a little more practice, I could actually avoid them. What's the par for this hole? Lily asked, shifting Al to her other hip. 4, I think, I replied, walking back over to Lily. I need some water, Lily grunted, squatting down and extending her hand toward the little storage area under the stroller. Oh, let me get it, I said quickly, moving to crouch down and fish the water out. Thanks, Lily said, flashing me one of those smiles that melts my heart like a popsicle on a July day. No problem, I replied, returning her smile. While my upbringing in Poverty Flats, Wyoming had included a good dose of training on what might be called chivalrous behavior and good manners, there was in fact another reason for my retrieving Lily's water bottle from the stroller. Unbeknownst to Lily, I had stowed a little monster telescoping fishing rod in the bottom of the stroller alongside the water, sunscreen, and diapers we usually brought with us when we went to the park. I hold to the Scout motto, be prepared, and I couldn't help but hope the opportunity to cast a line might arise while we were at Freeman Park that day. When it comes to wives and fishing, I abide by that old adage, 'tis better to beg forgiveness than to ask for permission. So I had not let Lily in on my fishing plans. Here we go, I grunted, straightening up. Lily smiled and took a long drink, then handed the bottle back. I inserted it carefully into the storage space, hoping Lily wouldn't notice the tip of the fishing pole sticking out to one side. I had nothing to fear, though, since she was already looking toward our frisbees, her brow furrowed against the glare of the afternoon sun. I don't think either of us are going to make par, Lily mused. No, probably not, I agreed, giving the stroller a shove. In a few more throws, we approached the basket, and I managed to overthrow it from 10 yards out with my usual frisbee prowess. Shoot, I muttered, as I watched the disc roll down the hill on the other side of the basket. That'll add another throw or two to my score on this hole. Or 3, Lily chuckled. With a deft flick of her wrist, she tossed her own blue disc into the basket with a satisfying clang and the chatter of bouncing chains. 6, she declared, and that was while I was holding a baby. I grinned and shook my head. Does being both talented and beautiful get challenging once in a while? Oh, stop it, she blushed. Oh, Al Jr. is filling his diaper, she gasped. I got the last one, I blurted out. Okay, I guess I can go change him. I think there's a bathroom over there. Can you hand me the diaper bag? Lily asked. You'll need at least 10 minutes to finish this hole anyway, she added with a sly grin. Ha ha, very funny, I shot back, removing a blanket so I could pull the diaper bag from its place under the stroller. Just give me a diaper and the wipes, Lily suggested. Here you go. I gave her a quick kiss and pinched Al's chubby little cheek before Lily turned and headed off in the direction of the nearest facilities. I dropped the diaper bag into the seat of the stroller and draped the blanket over the top of it. As soon as Lily was gone, I hurried down the little hill to scoop up my frisbee and toss it up toward the basket. This time it skidded to a stop at the foot of the galvanized steel pole on which the basket hung, and I was able to pick it up and swing it through the chains hanging down from the basket's upper circle in one smooth motion. With a growing degree of urgency, I tossed the orange disc into the seat of the stroller and made a beeline for the jogging path and the river just beyond it. This was my chance. While I jogged toward the steep hill heading down to the jogging path, I leaned down to snag my fishing rod. With a flick of my wrist that I'm sure didn't look nearly as cool as it felt, I extended the rod while continuing to push the stroller with my right hand. Coming to the hill, I decided it would be a safe spot to leave the stroller and quickly fumbled for the brake with my foot before racing down the hill toward the river, like some medieval swordsman charging into battle. As I crossed the little jogging path, I noticed a couple ladies in pink and orange tracksuits walking my direction on the path. But they were far enough away that I would cross the jogging trail long before they arrived. Coming to the water's edge, I fished a little case of lures out of my pocket and selected a likely-looking spinner. Here the river ran deep and slow, and a large boulder provided a great spot to try my luck. Glancing behind me to see if Lily and Al Jr. had emerged from the restroom, I didn't see anyone but the two approaching ladies, so I began clipping the spinner onto the swivel on the end of my line. Working with small objects like fishing lures requires a good deal of concentration, even when you're in a hurry. So I was so focused on the task at hand, it took me a moment to register the screams. They came from behind me and were so shrill in their urgency that I had no choice but to glance up from my work. That's when I saw them. The two women in the tracksuits were screeching like banshees as they raced down the path in my direction, their arms flailing above their heads. The one on the right was dressed in a pink jacket with blue yoga pants, and her brown hair was pulled back in a ponytail that bounced furiously as she took long, ground-eating strides. Her companion was shorter and therefore slower, but no less determined in her entirely orange outfit. The little pink weights she had clenched in each hand did little to slow her down. Startled, I dropped my spinner and prepared to find shelter should the two women turn violent. They were approaching at an alarming rate, and I couldn't help but wonder if they were the crazed anti-fishing type. I had never met someone who was so opposed to fishing that they would actually attack an angler. But there's a first time for everything. Just then, I made an observation that probably owes itself to my acute senses, honed by years of pursuing trout and wild game in the mountains of northwestern Wyoming. My observation was this. I realized that the women were not in fact directing their frantic screams toward myself, but toward something off to my right. Turning in that direction, I noticed a stroller that looked remarkably like the one I had parked on the big hill. It wasn't hard to miss, since it was rolling downhill toward the jogging path. It bounced as it rolled over the uneven ground, picking up speed all the while. The diaper bag with the accompanying blanket sat in the seat where I had left them, and when the stroller hit a large bump, both would bounce up a bit. Not unlike a baby kicking at a blanket. "No!" bellowed the lady in the pink jacket. Orange tracksuit lady was not far behind, and unlike her jogging partner, preferred a steady fire siren wail to actual words. I, of course, knew there was not in fact a baby in the stroller, and did not express nearly as much excitement about the situation as the approaching women did. There was a small chance the stroller might be damaged when it reached the bottom of the hill, but it was coming down at an angle rather than going straight toward the river. At most, the stroller would probably hit a tree or tip over and roll a few times, but it probably wouldn't end up in the water. This was a relief to me, but seemed to do little to calm down the good Samaritans who were charging toward the little vehicle. The stroller bounced. The women screamed. I stooped over to pick up my spinner from where it had landed in the sand. Ahead of me, the stroller continued its course diagonally across the hill and away from the ladies, which only seemed to intensify their agitation. I began walking toward my stroller as well, but at the rate they were going, the two women would reach it long before I did. Just then, the steep pitch of the hill became too much for the top-heavy stroller, and with agonizing slowness, accented by the shrieks of two of its pursuers, it tipped up onto two tires and then flopped onto its side unceremoniously. The frisbee that had been resting on top of the diaper bag rolled out and bounced the rest of the way down the hill, much to the dismay of the would-be stroller saviors. Mouths agape, they drew up even with the downed stroller. The first lady to arrive skidded to a stop on her knees beside it, then peered into the seat, fully expecting to find an injured baby, I'm sure. Her companion reached her a moment later, hands on knees as she panted. I couldn't help but feel I was at least partly at fault in the whole situation, which may be why I tried so hard to stop laughing before I got within earshot. As it was, I had to cover my mouth with a hand and feign a yawn as I walked up. The ladies turned abruptly toward me when I said, "Hey there. So sorry, I must not have gotten the brake quite locked." "Oh my word!" the second lady, the one in the orange tracksuit, gasped, a hand on her heaving chest. "I thought there was a baby in there." "Yeah, no, my wife has the baby," I said, fighting back a smile. "Thanks for your concern, though." The ladies took in my fishing rod and reel, and their shocked expressions started to melt into what looked a little too much like righteous indignation for my liking. Orange tracksuit lady balled her hands up into fists and planted them on her hips, her eyes flashing. "You scared us half to death. What's the idea of leaving a stroller parked on the side of a hill?" "Well, I started, but didn't stand a chance. It was a good old-fashioned case of 2-on-1 now." "And you're fishing?" howled the lady in the pink jacket. "Why aren't you taking care of your kid? You think you can just run off and leave your stroller unattended? What if your baby was in there? I bet you would have just left him there too, huh?" "But my son wasn't in the stroller," I pointed out. It seemed like a pretty good point in my favor, but apparently didn't impress the pair of speedwalkers. "Humph," Orange Tracksuit huffed. "You should be more careful," Pink Jacket thundered, straightening up. As the two of them walked away, chattering angrily with one another, I sighed. I righted the stroller and had just turned to wheel it over to the river when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of Lily laughing her head off. "Ha ha 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 ha," she chortled. "They set you straight, and the looks on their faces when they saw the stroller tip over. Oh my gosh, I could have died." "Well, they thought someone's baby was going to die," I grumbled. Lily walked down the hill, Al Jr. on her hip. "Well," she said with a grin, "it serves you right for trying to go fishing while I changed Al's diaper. I wondered if you'd try it." I looked down at my fishing rod and kicked at the dirt. "Yeah, well, I didn't have a chance to use this telescoping rod. I hid it in the stroller just in case, you know?" Lily's grin widened. "I know. I knew it was there the whole time. Here," she said, passing me the baby. "I changed the diaper, so I think it's only fair I get the first cast." "Now hold on a second," I grinned, accepting Al. "Do you even know how to use that pole? It's pretty high-tech." I hurried after Lily, Al slapping my chest with a tiny hand. I was in such a rush to catch up with her, I almost forgot the stroller. Almost. And there you have it. Another untold tale from this side of nowhere. Yeah, I do miss Freeman Park Frisbee golf. That was a fun part of living in Idaho Falls. There's a little frisbee golf course here in Powell, if you didn't know about it. It runs around the campus of Northwest College, and the first hole, well, it used to be by the Music and Performing Arts building. There's that big grassy area. There are still baskets there. They're not hole 1 and 2 anymore. I think the first hole is up on the soccer practice field, but it runs around the practice field and then behind the dorms at that basketball court, and then it cuts over the parking lot on the back side of campus, runs through that place with the little hills and the trees, and continues like clear over by Bridger Hall, or what was Bridger Hall, that one that burned down. So it's a pretty good course. Haley and I and the boys like to go and play frisbee golf there. And I keep a little note on my phone with our scores just to make sure we're improving. I can't say that we improve much, but it's fun. It's a good way to get out, and the boys really love it. It's a good outdoor sport for little kids because you don't go over crazy terrain, but they get to do some walking and running and practice throwing. So it's fun. Not quite as fun as fishing, but it's fun. If you like frisbee golf or know of a frisbee golf course around the area, be sure to respond to this post on Facebook when the episode is released. If you would like to share another story or thoughts, you can also shoot me an email at untoldtalesthepodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. Please go rate or review the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, and we thank you for it. As always, it's been a blast to have you here, and this has been another Untold Tale from this side of nowhere, where we work twice as hard for half as much and still find time for the important things, like fishing. Catch you next time, folks.